Hi there, this is Dr. Embody, and today we're going to take a look at Project 4. And Project 4 is the game of Hangman, where it's a guessing game. So one person chooses a word and the other one guesses letters. Oh, it's the letter L, and then all the L's would get filled in. And guess the letter C, all the letter C's get filled in. And eventually you try to guess the whole word. And if you do it within a certain number of tries, which is 10 in standard Hangman, but we're going to just do 6 just to make your code a little easier, then you win. And at any point in the game, you can just guess the word. You see some of the letters, and then you say, oh yeah, I know what it is, and you guess. And if you guess correctly, well, of course you win. If you guess incorrectly, you lose at that point. So you don't get multiple guesses of the whole word, and now we have to write a program to do that. By the way, what we're going to do with this is that you guess individual letters, and if the guess is more than one letter, then we're going to assume that you're trying to guess the whole word. And so then you check to see whether you got it right, and so on. So be careful. We got a bunch of little rules about case sensitivity and stuff like that, as well as a series of tests to go through. So with that, let's take a look at the project. A good place to start with this is, first of all, how do we simplify it? And one of the things that I mentioned in terms of simplification is to leave the error checking to last. All right. So all the inputs perfect. Get your program to work that way, and then also get your program to start with just so that it works with a single word, not with a whole phrase of words. Again, let's start simple. So no errors, and we're going to just do single word. All right. With that, let's take a look at the samples, because one of the things that we need to do is we need to figure out what variables are we going to need. And so let's see here. What are we going to have? Well, we certainly are going to have the phrase, and we're going to have to keep track of the current state of the system. We're going to have to keep account of the guesses. Right? And we're going to have to keep track of the actual guess itself. So, well, quite naturally, we can give the input phrase. We just call that the phrase. And then we have current, which will have the exact same number of characters in it as the phrase, and then every time we make a guess, now in this case we actually know what the phrase is, hello. So if I guess an H, then we see our current will show the H there. If I guess an L, all right, then both L's get replaced there, not just one but both of them. If we have a letter that's not in my phrase, then we do nothing, but that does count as a guess, right? And the other thing that we're keeping track of here is all the guesses that we've had. So there's another variable that we have. So now I can think about the state of this system. We have our phrases, we have our current, we have the guesses that we have to keep track of, which letter is being guessed, and which are the letters that have already been guessed, so that the player won't guess them again. And again, there are rules for all of this. So now I've got some variables. Clearly, I have a loop here. And it really doesn't matter in this case whether you want to do this with a for or a while loop. I, in fact, did it with a while loop. I had 2 conditions. If you think about it, what are the 2 things that will stop this? Well, you get 6 guesses, or you guess correctly, right? So so I had something to do with the 6 guesses, and I also had something to do with it being correct. Right? And you can do the same thing with the loop, with a for loop. You could do a for loop with the 6 guesses, and then you can break on the getting it correct. So both of them work pretty well here. Really no preference because you have this 6. You can use a for loop on this. All right. What else do we have to deal with? Well, what I'd like to do is talk about this part of the project, which is how do I take my current and fill in the letters. You know, I filled in an H, and then I filled in the L's, and then there was no guess, so that didn't change. How do I go about doing that? Well, let's take a look, and let's try the word success, for example. All right, so that'll be my phrase, and I want to have the current state of the game, and that will be, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dashes. And how do I do that? Well, I can look at the length of this and make the dashes, or I can walk through it and add the dashes. There's all sorts of ways of doing that. And now suppose we guess the letter and you know, suppose we guess the letter C. Now, to start with, we'll just assume it's everything is lowercase, and later on you can deal with what's uppercase and lowercase, and there's some rules about that, and so on. But now, how do I go through and put the C's in there? Well, you can walk through the phrase. I see the letter S. Is the letter S the same as C? The answer is no, so I don't change this. Look at a U. Is that a C? Nope. Now I get a C. Okay, so I have a C. It's at index 3. I mean 0, 1, 2. Sorry, index 2. And that gets changed to a C. Now I look at the next letter, a C. That matches at index 3. Another C. And then you keep going through. I have an E, an S, none of those match. And so I can change these as I go. So let's take a look at that a little bit closer. So I've got my phrase. And when I go through this, and I want to put a C in here. What does that really mean? Well, there's 2 ways I can do this. One is I can slice at this point. I can slice this part and that part, and I can take this slice plus my my letter plus the rest of the slice. I mean, that's one way I could do it. The other way you can do it is you can say something like the new current equals an empty space, and then as you go through this, when you do your comparisons, you say it's not equal, so I'll put a dash in there. It's not equal, I'll put a dash in there. It's equal, I'll put a C in there, and then it's equal, I'll put a C in there, and then all the other ones are not equal. So I can build this a new current up, one character at a time, and then when I'm all done, I can say that current equals new current. So you've got two ways to go through this and add the letters in there. And notice I haven't really talked about Python at this point. And so this is really the design stage. And this is the kind of discussion that you can go ahead and have with another student, because we're really designing, we're really not talking about Python, how you're going to end up doing this. There are very, very different ways. So let me say one more thing. When I walk through the phrase, and that's the way I was thinking of it here anyways, is that enumerate is really nice to use. And so you get two results out of enumerate. So you've got the I, which is your index, 0, 1, that would be the 2 in this case. So here's your I and your CH. The I is 2. The character that you have is the character C, and that's the kind of thing you get each time through here. So that's handy if you want to do the slicing. It's also handy if you want to do it as building that string as you go along. So that ends up actually being an important part of the game. You got to build a whole loop around this, but if you can get this part working, now you've got a way of building the game, building the state of the game as you go. So hopefully that gives you a clue on how to get started. Good luck.